IB Bio, Human Physiology Part 3, is the first of 4 parts covering circulation, what is known as the blood system in the IB syllabus. Human Physiology Part 3, Circulation A, this movie, has its focus on 3 introductory topics. First, blood and its composition. Secondly, an overview of the circulatory system. And lastly, a look at the basic structure of the heart, including blood flow through the heart. The essential idea is the blood system continuously transports substances to cells and simultaneously collects waste products. Here is the first of 2 slides that provide an outline of all the movies available for Topic 6, Human Physiology. Topic 6 is for SL and HL students. Use the outline to find the movie you need for review. This movie is focused here. Here is the second slide of the outline of all available movies for Topic 6, Human Physiology. The circulatory system involves the movement of a fluid known as blood. Blood is a transport medium that transports molecules between exchange surfaces and cells deep within the body. The blood is the link between the surfaces in contact with the external environment and the cells far from the surface of the body. There are 3 significant exchange surfaces that allow the body to exchange molecules between the external environment and the bloodstream. The small intestine of the digestive system is 1, the lung alveoli of the gas exchange system would be 2, and the nephrons of the kidney, our urinary system, is the 3rd exchange surface. These surfaces, each with very high surface area, exchange materials with the environment, and the bloodstream links those surfaces to body cells far from the surface. The heart pumps the blood, that's its role. The capillaries throughout the body are the internal exchange surfaces. Every body cell lies in close proximity to a capillary. Body cells exchange materials with the interstitial fluid surrounding them, that in turn exchange materials with a nearby capillary. Blood is a suspension, a mixture of substances, some of which are dissolved and some of which aren't. There are cells, not dissolved, and a watery solution known as plasma, mostly water with dissolved solutes. The water in blood, with its high solubility, makes blood a very good transport medium. The 5 liters of blood in the average adult human makes up approximately 7% of body weight. Cells comprise 45% of blood by volume. Plasma, the other 55% by volume, is mostly water. In fact, 92% of this is water. In this image, you can see red and white blood cells. Blood cells are formed by mitosis in the bone marrow. Platelets are cell fragments that play a role in the clotting of blood following an injury. So here's our first IB syllabus statement. State the role of each of the following cellular components of blood: erythrocytes, leukocytes, which include the phagocytes and the lymphocytes, and platelets. Once again, blood is composed of cells and a fluid known as plasma. Without the red blood cells, plasma is mostly clear and would be considered a solution. Plasma is mostly water, and with its high solubility, water, in other words blood, is a very good transport medium. The red blood cells are known as erythrocytes, and the red blood cell role is to transport oxygen. The white blood cells are known as leukocytes, and the leukocytes play a role in the defense against disease. The plasma is nearly clear without the red blood cells. Among the white blood cells, the leukocytes, there are the phagocytes and the lymphocytes. Phagocytes appear like amoebas and engulf bacteria or other foreign material that has entered the body. Phagocytes engulf foreign cells that might cause disease. Lymphocytes also protect us from disease. B cells secrete antibodies, while T cells activate B cells and work to reduce viral infection. Defense against disease will be studied in the next section of the Topic 6, Human Physiology unit. Here is the next IB syllabus statement. State that the following are transported by the blood: heat, glucose, amino acids, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, antibodies, waste products such as urea, and sodium chloride, salt. Glucose and amino acids dissolve well in water, as do salts and urea. Oxygen does not dissolve well in water, thus most oxygen is carried by hemoglobin within red blood cells. The R groups of proteins allow certain proteins to be more soluble than others. Dissolved within the plasma are numerous substances, and none of these substances should surprise you by their presence. Glucose, amino acids, both very soluble in plasma. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, a little less soluble. Hormones, blood proteins, and urea. Carbon dioxide and urea are metabolic waste products transported from body cells to external exchange surfaces where they can be eliminated from the body. Among the blood proteins are antibodies secreted by B cell lymphocytes, and there are soluble proteins in the blood that are involved in blood clotting, and these are thrombin and fibrinogen. Ultimately, you will need to get to know the following hormones, but be patient, one thing at a time. Plasma does contain a small amount of dissolved oxygen, but most of the oxygen is transported within red blood cells. The red blood cells contain hemoglobin, a lot of it, and oxygen binds to the hemoglobin. In this image on the left, we can see the fourth level structure of the hemoglobin protein. The protein has 4 polypeptide subunits and 4 heme groups, each with an iron atom in the center. Oxygen binds to the iron in hemoglobin so that each hemoglobin molecule, each one, binds 4 oxygen molecules. Now, each red blood cell contains approximately 250 million hemoglobin molecules. The red blood cell has no nucleus, allowing for the room necessary to have all of these hemoglobin molecules within. Let's look at the generalized circulatory system as seen in this diagram to understand the flow of blood throughout the body. Notice that there is a separate circulation for the lungs and other body capillaries. Blood is pumped twice in the course of one complete circuit through the body. I'll show you that in just a second. And there is a separation of blood carrying oxygen from blood that is deoxygenated with high carbon dioxide content. Let's trace the circuit as if we were following a single cell from a starting point back to the same point. Let's start here, body capillaries. Blood moves to the heart, where it is pumped once to the lungs, back to the heart, pumped a second time to the body. The right side of the heart receives and pumps deoxygenated blood, while the left side receives and pumps oxygenated blood. Now be careful as you study this slide. The body capillaries seen here would include capillaries everywhere, head to toe. Just because these capillaries are shown in the lower portion of the diagram does not mean that they only include capillaries in the lower part of the body. Another way to say this is that the left ventricle of the heart, seen here, pumps blood to every location in the body as represented by these capillaries. In this image, we have another overview of the circulatory system, but with a bit more detail. Let's take a look, but this time we'll start with the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, blood is pumped to both the upper body, the head, and the lower body. This branch point in the aorta was not shown in the previous diagram. From the aorta, or the carotid artery here, blood passes through capillary beds everywhere. In the capillary beds, blood gives up oxygen and then returns to the heart deoxygenated. It returns to the right side of the heart deoxygenated, coming in the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. Blood passes into the right atrium, to the right ventricle, to the pulmonary arteries. Now keep in mind that the blood in the pulmonary artery is still deoxygenated as it passes through these vessels. The blood passes through the capillary beds of the lungs, picks up oxygen, gives up carbon dioxide, then passes in the pulmonary veins, oxygenated, to the left atrium, and then to the left ventricle. Now notice the hepatic portal vein, seen here. It connects the gut capillaries, the blood leaving the gut, heading to the liver. Remember, nutrients leaving the digestive tract are moved to the liver in the hepatic portal vein. Now you need to be able to state the role of arteries, capillaries, and veins. Arteries transport blood at high pressure from ventricles to the tissues of the body, in other words, away from the heart. Veins collect blood at low pressure from the tissues in the body and return it to the atria of the heart. In other words, veins transport blood toward the heart, and capillaries are the exchange site, the exchange surface, over which materials are exchanged between cells and the blood. The roles of arteries and veins have nothing to do with whether the blood is oxygenated or deoxygenated. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Veins carry blood toward the heart. Here is an artery carrying deoxygenated blood to the lungs. And here are veins carrying oxygenated blood back to the heart. Be careful. Pay close attention to these definitions. And here is our next IB syllabus statement. Annotate a diagram of the heart showing all four chambers, associated blood vessels, valves, and the route of blood through the heart. Here is a simple image of the heart. Notice the tissue that clearly separates the right side from the left side. The right side of the heart receives and pumps deoxygenated blood, while the left side of the heart receives and pumps oxygenated blood. I will name each chamber and vessel, and I will identify the valves, but we'll work on blood flow through the heart in the slides to come. I'll start on the right side. This is the right ventricle. This is the pulmonary artery. This is the right atrium, and this is the vena cava, in this case the inferior vena cava. This is superior vena cava. To the left side, this is the left ventricle, and this is the aorta. This is the left atrium, and these are the pulmonary veins coming from the lungs. There are two pairs of valves. Here, that's one pair, and the second pair here and here. Here is a slide that provides the key to the image that I showed you in the last slide. It might be a good idea to pause the movie and practice. By the way, here are the pairs of valves, pair 1, pair 2. In this image, we can practice the names of the chambers and the vessels by showing the route of the blood through the heart. Blood arrives to the right atrium in the vena cava from the lower reaches of the body in the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava to the right atrium. From the right atrium, blood is moved to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, blood is moved in the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Blood comes back to the heart in the pulmonary veins, comes back from the lungs in the pulmonary veins to the left atrium. From the left atrium to the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle the blood is pumped out to the body in the aorta. Now realize that the wall of the left ventricle is not shown well here. As compared to the right ventricle, the left ventricle wall is significantly thicker, significantly more muscular, as it must pump blood to the most distant parts of the body. This image identifies the route taken by blood through the heart. Pause the movie now and study this diagram. Notice the color coding indicating oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood is carrying high levels of carbon dioxide as a waste. The carbon dioxide is being moved from cells deep within the body to the lungs for elimination from the body. Now this image also shows the route of blood flow through the heart, but it also shows the structure of the heart more realistically because the aorta passes to the dorsal side under, in the case of this image, under the pulmonary artery, which is here. The aorta bends dramatically just anterior of the heart with branches to the head and arms, before turning in a posterior direction, which can't be seen here, running down along the backbone toward the lower part of the body. Again, it might be a good idea to pause the movie and study this slide. Can you name all of the structures? What's meant by the color coding of blue and red? Which chamber of the heart has the thicker wall, and why? Here's another image of the heart with all chambers and vessels identified. As well, study the color coding of the chambers and vessels. Keep in mind that deoxygenated blood is carrying high levels of carbon dioxide as a waste that's being moved to the lungs for elimination from the body. Here's a chance to practice, but I'm going to leave the work to you without providing a key. See me in class as need be. You should be able to identify the valves as well in this image. They are here, one pair, and here, the second pair. Can you state the role of the valves? Can you locate the valves in this image? Can you state the role of the valves? So that brings us to these two IB syllabus statements. Describe the action of the heart in terms of collecting of blood, pumping of blood, and the opening and closing of valves. State the role of the heart valves. Starting from a relaxed condition of the heart, the atrio-ventricular valves here are open. Blood is flowing into both atria and then directly into ventricles until the ventricles are nearly full. Then the atria contract simultaneously. Then the ventricles contract, and as they do, the atrio-ventricular valves close, and these semilunar valves open. Blood flows from the left ventricle into the aorta, going to all parts of the body. Blood flows from the right ventricle to the pulmonary artery, going to the lungs. The semilunar valves then close. The AV valves open as the heart relaxes, and then the chambers begin to fill again. The valves, by the way, prevent backflow of the blood. The closing of the valve pairs, one pair after the other, provides the sounds that we hear when listening to one's heartbeat. Lubb, Dupp. The first sound is the closing of the atrio-ventricular valves upon contraction of the ventricle. The second sound is the closing of the semilunar valves together upon the blood exiting the aorta and exiting the pulmonary artery. One more time, during a brief rest period known as diastole, the blood flows into the atria, then collects directly into the ventricles. Then the contraction period begins, known as systole. The atria contract together, forcing any remaining blood through the AV valves into the ventricles. Then the ventricles contract together, the AV valves close, and the semilunar valves open. Blood flows out through the aorta and the pulmonary artery. Then the heart returns to rest, diastole. The semilunar valves close. The AV valves open. Blood flows into the atria. Blood flows into the atria and then through the valves into the ventricle, etc. Here's an image of the valves in an open and closed position. The valves open and close strictly on the basis of pressure created by the contraction of the heart walls. When the atria are contracting, the pressure in the atria is higher than the ventricle, so the AV valves are open as blood flows into the ventricle. When the ventricles contract, the AV valves close to prevent blood from flowing backwards. The semilunar valves open to allow blood flow into the large vessels, the aorta and the pulmonary artery. When the semilunar valves close, they prevent blood from flowing back into the ventricles. The valves play the role of ensuring that blood flows in the proper direction. Valves are composed of tough connective tissue and are supported by tendinous cords and small muscles. Here's another image of a valve, in this case the bicuspid valve, that lies between the left atrium and the left ventricle. As this movie comes close to its end, I would like to mention that the heart lies within a connective tissue sheath called a pericardium. The two membranes of the pericardium enclose a fluid that reduces frictional wear of the heart as it beats repeatedly over the course of one's life. And here is our last IB syllabus statement with an added statement from The Nature of Science. Describe William Harvey's discovery of the circulation of blood with the heart acting as a pump. Theories are regarded as uncertain. William Harvey overturned theories developed by the ancient Greek philosopher Galen on the movement of blood in the body. This document, published in 1628 by Harvey, described a clear and connected account of the action of the heart and the consequent movement of the blood around the body in a circuit. Now Galen, a philosopher from the 2nd century AD, provided the only previous description of blood circulation that had lasted for nearly 1,300 years. According to Galen, blood is created in the liver from ingested food and flows to the right side of the heart. Some of it flows to the lungs, where it gives off sooty vapors, and some flows through invisible pores into the left side of the heart, where it gains vital spirits when mixed with the pneuma brought in by the trachea. Several arteries flow into a fictional rete mirabile at the base of the brain, where vital spirits are changed to animal spirits before being distributed to the rest of the body through hollow tubes called nerves, where the blood is consumed by the tissues. Now, Galen's 13-year-old account sounds almost silly, but realize that this is how science works. We do the best we can. We develop new theories, often using new technology, thus moving our ideas, however fallible, forward. Realize that the microscope had not yet been invented, so Harvey did not have a fully accurate picture of what he was trying to describe, and some of his descriptions were theoretical. Harvey performed numerous experiments on reptiles and fish to demonstrate how the blood circulated in a circuit. His method was to tie their veins and arteries in separate periods of time and notice the modifications which occurred. For example, when he tied the veins, the heart would become empty, and when he tied the arteries, the organ would swell up. Harvey analyzed arteries, showing how their pulsation depends upon the contraction of the left ventricle, while the contraction of the right ventricle propels its charge of blood into the pulmonary artery. He stated that the ventricles move together almost simultaneously and not independently, as had been thought previously by Galen. Harvey analyzed circulation in the human body with a tourniquet on the upper arm of a person. This would cut off blood flow from the arteries and the veins. Thus the arm below the tourniquet was cool and pale, while above the tourniquet it was warm and swollen. When the tourniquet was loosened slightly, blood from the arteries flowed into the arm. Harvey then noticed little bumps in the veins, which he realized were the valves of the veins. Harvey tried to push blood in the vein down the arm, but couldn't. When he tried to push it up the arm, it moved quite easily. This led Harvey to believe that the veins allowed blood to flow to the heart and that the valves maintained the one-way flow. And that brings us to the end of Topic 6, Human Physiology, Part 3, Circulation A.